Across the vast, snow-covered plains where the wind cut like knives and temperatures plunged far below freezing, life for native peoples was a true struggle for survival. In those harsh conditions, the tepee, a simple buffalo hide dwelling, was not just shelter, but the very center of existence. Inside, the fire burned constantly, spreading warmth and light through the long winter nights. Families huddled close, sharing heat, food, and stories to drive away the cold. Yet behind that peaceful scene was an ongoing battle against hunger, frost, and the unforgiving wild. Every day demanded ingenuity, using whatever nature offered: dry wood, animal hides, even ashes, to stay alive. Survival wasn't a choice. It was instinct. The tepee stood as a symbol of endurance and adaptability, protecting both body and spirit from isolation and despair amid the frozen plains. It represented a life of cooperation, resilience, and harmony with the natural world, a lasting testament to human strength in the face of nature's harshest trials. While the image of a tepee in winter is often portrayed as something romantic, soft snow falling outside, a warm fire flickering within, a family gathered close, telling stories, the reality hit a far more practical and difficult challenge: the problem of sanitation in freezing weather. Outside, the wind could slice through skin, the snow piled up to the knees, and temperatures could cause frostbite within minutes. Going outside to relieve oneself was anything but simple. There were no toilets, no drainage systems, and inside the confined shared space of the tepee, the issue became one of survival rather than convenience. Adults might endure the cold, but for children or the elderly, stepping out into a stormy night could be life-threatening. Because of this, native people had to devise clever and discreet solutions to meet this essential human need while maintaining cleanliness and respect within their communal space. They understood that the tepee was not merely a shelter, it was the lifeline that kept them alive through the brutal winter, and any careless act could endanger the health of the entire family. Thus, their hygiene practices inside the tepee reflected more than just adaptation to the environment. They revealed a deep sense of awareness, refinement, and community responsibility. What might seem like a small matter in warmer times became, in the heart of winter, a true test of human ingenuity, discipline, and respect for both the living space and one another. Amid the harsh winters of the snow-covered plains, when everything froze solid and life itself seemed to pause, the indigenous peoples of North America still managed to live steadily within their simple teepees. Without plumbing, toilets, or any of the conveniences of the modern world, they developed creative and sustainable methods to manage daily sanitation. A task that might seem small but was essential to the health, safety, and dignity of the entire community. In those brutal conditions, the intelligence and adaptability of humanity shone more clearly than ever. The first and most common solution was using ash from the fire. Every tepee had a central fire for warmth and cooking, which naturally produced a large amount of ash each day. Instead of discarding it, native people used it as a natural deodorizer, absorbent, and disinfectant. They knew that ash, being alkaline, could neutralize odors and inhibit bacterial growth. When needed, a small amount of waste could be covered with ash, much like how we might use dirt or sand. This simple act reduced unpleasant smells and prevented the spread of germs in the enclosed space. Ash became the natural soap of nomadic life, a clear symbol of the resourcefulness and complete recycling mindset of the people. Alongside ash, dry earth and sand were also valuable tools. In areas with little snow or during early winter, people collected dry soil or fine sand and stored it in hide bags near the entrance of the tepee. When necessary, they sprinkled a thin layer over waste to absorb moisture, cover it, and maintain cleanliness. This was essentially an early version of the dry or composting toilet, operating on the same principles embraced by modern eco-friendly sanitation systems. No water, natural materials, and minimal environmental impact. When the snow deepened, snow itself became a precious resource. To modern eyes, snow represents cold and hardship, but to the native peoples, it was a source of clean water and a versatile hygiene material. Fresh snow could be used to wash hands, clean tools, or quickly cover waste, freezing it and locking away odors. In a world where liquid water was rare, snow became the living water of winter. Sometimes, a handful of clean snow even replaced bathing, an efficient and hygienic solution in times of scarcity. In addition to these natural materials, native people made temporary containers for emergencies when going outside was impossible. Items such as woven baskets, bark bowls, pottery shards, or animal hide pouches were used, often lined with dry hides or leaves for easier cleaning. After use, they were sealed and stored near the entrance, the coldest part of the tepee, to minimize odor. When the weather improved, The contents were emptied into outdoor latrine pits, located safely away from the camp and water sources. These pits were covered with soil, snow, or ash after each use, preventing disease and deterring animals. Their discipline and care in waste management allowed entire communities to survive long winters without outbreaks, something many settled societies of the time could not achieve. Yet beyond practicality, hygiene carried deep cultural and spiritual meaning. The tepee was not merely a home but a sacred space, a symbol of family and connection to the earth and sky. Keeping it clean was a way of honoring the spirit of the home. Waste was never handled carelessly. Children were taught that filth inside the tepee offended the spirits of the ancestors and desecrated the living space. Cleanliness, therefore, was both a spiritual ritual and a moral duty, expressing gratitude and respect toward nature, the only source of life in the frozen wilderness. All these practices, from the use of ash, earth, and snow to the cultural emphasis on respect, reflected a sustainable philosophy of living. Nature was not something to conquer but a partner to coexist with. Instead of resisting the environment, they learned to live in harmony with it, using available resources wisely and purposefully. Every small act, sprinkling ash, washing with snow, spoke of deep ecological understanding and reverence for life's balance. From a modern perspective, these solutions represent an early form of ecotechnology, non-polluting, energy-independent, and entirely reliant on local materials. They found ways to maintain hygiene, health, and dignity in conditions most of us today can scarcely imagine. So when we think of the tepee, we should not only picture the warm firelight and distant drums. Beneath those buffalo hides lay a complete survival system, where human intelligence and nature worked together to create solutions that were both ingenious and sustainable. It was these seemingly small details that enabled thousands to endure the bitter cold, preserve life, and pass down enduring lessons in adaptability, respect for the environment, and the unyielding resilience of the human spirit. In the daily life of the native peoples of North America, the tepee was far more than a simple shelter from the cold. It was the cultural and spiritual heart of the family. Within its conical walls, every aspect of life, eating, sleeping, working, and even attending to hygiene, took place in a small, shared space where people had to live in closeness, understanding, and mutual respect. Because of this, maintaining cleanliness, modesty, and reverence inside the tepee was not merely a matter of biology. It carried deep cultural and spiritual meaning. The native peoples believed that each tepee possessed its own spirit, and to let it become dirty or foul was to offend that spirit. Cleanliness, therefore, was not only for health but also an act of gratitude and respect toward the home, a symbol of life, protection, and harmony in that confined space. Privacy was not ensured by walls or doors, but by awareness and social etiquette. When someone needed to relieve themselves or handle a private matter, everyone simply understood. They did not look, ask, or comment. This silent agreement reflected absolute respect for personal dignity. Children were taught from an early age that private acts must be done quietly, discreetly, and quickly. Each person bore responsibility for keeping the shared space clean, knowing that one person's carelessness could affect the entire family. These unspoken rules were passed down through example and observation, forming a subtle but refined culture of behavior within the tight quarters of tepee life. Elder women and mothers often guided family members in maintaining hygiene and disposing of waste properly. They taught that keeping the tepee clean was not merely personal duty but a responsibility to the community. When one person acted responsibly, everyone benefited. When one person neglected it, all suffered. This reflected the native spirit of collective responsibility and cooperation, where even the smallest actions were tied to the well-being of the whole. Respect also extended to nature and the environment. Waste was never thrown carelessly. Everything was buried or covered with ash, earth, or snow, returned to the land without pollution. They saw this as part of nature's cycle, where humans and the earth coexisted in balance. In their worldview, cleanliness was not only a physical state but also a reflection of inner purity and spiritual harmony, a connection between humans, nature, and their ancestors. These cultural values and social codes, respect, modesty, mindfulness, and responsibility, enabled native peoples not only to survive but to preserve their dignity and harmony, both among themselves and with the natural world. They formed the moral foundation that carried their communities through harsh winters and allowed their identity and traditions to endure for centuries. Looking back at the survival and sanitation practices within the teepees of native peoples, we can see that behind those seemingly simple actions lie profound lessons for the modern world. In an age when people depend so heavily on convenience, running water, chemical cleaners, automatic toilets, we often forget that our ancestors once lived clean, healthy, and sustainable lives relying only on a deep understanding of nature. Native peoples did not see waste or ashes as garbage, but as resources to be reused, turning what others might discard into useful tools. They used ash as a deodorizer, snow as cleansing water, and earth as an absorbent, all eco-friendly, non-polluting, and waste-free solutions.